4-mile day after a 10-miler. Always a good thing. Always a good thing to get back out of here, get after a double-digit mile day where I got a little lift in, got on the foam roller, legs feeling great. Always a good thing when you're getting out here, putting some work on. It's becoming the norm. Not becoming, it's the norm. It's what I do every once. My zen, my peace, my place where I get to sort a lot of shit out in my own mind and really adjust and give God the praise. To be honest with you, give God the praise that I'm blessed to see another day, because I don't take it for granted. And too often do we get in the habit of taking these days for granted, taking the fact that we have the ability to do certain things, that we take these basic things for granted, and we don't really consider, hey, there's people living through a lot of hard times. There's people who are mentally really in a place, in a fucked up place that is so wrong, so out of there, that we don't appreciate the small things. And today I'm bringing all this, I'm going on kind of a mini rant there because it's all today, the fallout, the Charlie Kirk fallout, it just continues. And to be 100% honest with you, is I don't think that we're anywhere near the end of this. We are literally at the tip of the iceberg in terms of all of the fallout and all the things that we're going to be seeing when it comes to Charlie Kirk. So what has been going on, what has happened, I want to update you if you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock. What's been happening over the past week is people are being laid off. Folks are being fired because of the insensitive things that they are making public statements that they are insensitive about when it comes to Charlie Kirk, and cheering about the fact that he was assassinated, cheering and being happy about it, and just celebrating a man who lost his life, unfortunately, way too young, and they're getting fired for it. Now, the reason I'm addressing this is because as the founder, CEO, founder, whatever you want to call it, the creator of the whole Move Swiftly platform, that's all about employee development, all about teaching you how to develop a staff, develop a team, using the game to develop a strong team. This is something that I have got to address. It's something I have to talk about, because I'm never an advocate for somebody necessarily losing their job, never an advocate for somebody to get fired or not have a way of paying their bills and putting food on the table for their family. However, in this circumstance, in this situation, I can't fault the person. I cannot fault the employee. I cannot fault the business owner. I cannot fault the person who has to make a really abrupt decision to say, hey, if you're that insensitive, if you're that fucking stupid to know what this man meant to certain people, to know that he had a family, to know that he had young kids and all that. And again, no one's telling you to like him, but for you to be stupid enough to put that shit publicly out there during a time of grieving, during a time where there's people who loved him and knew him, and you don't have the fucking common sense to keep that shit off the internet, whatever it is you want to say, then you don't deserve a job. You don't deserve a job, period. Because as a person who has a job, as a person who has the responsibility, if you take your fucking job seriously, then you should know, hey, at the end of the day, I have a job to do. I have my own situation. I have my own things I need to be doing. I don't need to be making something that's this controversial. Now, again, you can speak. I'm not telling you to just shut up. You can speak on certain things, but to be that insensitive, you have no place in the workplace. You're just not being responsible. How can I trust you to run my business? How can I trust you to run my company if you can't see that there are people who are fucking hurting, absolutely hurting, because a friend was lost, because a husband was lost, because a father was lost? How can you not see that there are people hurting and you don't have the responsibility in your mind to say, hey, I don't like the guy. I'm going to just let it go. I ain't going to put that online. I ain't going to be insensitive like that. I personally didn't like him. So I'm going to go out of my way and I'm going to fucking celebrate and say, well, he said this and he said that. And then you want to keep your job after you be bold enough to say this. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take you back last year. And this is where I draw a lot of connections. I draw a lot of connections to what we see on the football field, to what we see in the workplace. All right. So last year, if you recall, Penn State had a close game with Ohio State, and the head coach of Penn State, his name is James Franklin. It was a close game. They had the ball in the goal line like 4 times in a row, and they punched it in. Ohio State squeaks away with the victory, right? So anyway, James Franklin is walking back. James Franklin, head coach of Penn State, he's walking back to the locker room, and there's this fan that has the balls, has the audacity to go up to James Franklin and say, hey, that's 4 times to the goal line, and you didn't score. And then James Franklin stops. He heard him. He stops. He don't, again, a lot of people don't respond to people in the crowd, but he stops and he goes, "What's your name? What's your name?" And then the guy shut up, right? Because either the guy who said 4 times their goal, he goes, "What's your name?" And then James Franklin says, No. You're man enough to talk. Be man enough to tell me your name. And the reason that guy didn't tell him his name is because he knew James Franklin had the power to make it so you're never going to come to a Penn State game again. Period, point blank, end of sentence. It's the same situation right now. If you're not responsible enough to know that, hey, fuck, of course, James Franklin's the head coach of the team. You're not responsible enough to know. You don't think he fucking knows that? You don't think he knows and he's not upset about that, the amount of hours he puts into the organization? Same thing. The same principle is true. Somebody gives you a job, they pay you every 2 weeks, and you don't have the responsibility to say, look, maybe I shouldn't represent my company, represent the person that's paying me in a way that's going to be detrimental to the organization. Instead, I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about likes. I'm thinking about going viral. I'm thinking about all the bullshit vanity metrics that comes with social media. So that's my take on it. Is again, as much as I hate to say it, I hate to admit it, because I'm not an advocate for somebody losing their jobs. If you're stupid enough to put some arrogant celebratory bullshit on the internet about Charlie Kirk, I don't even think you deserve to be employed, period. I don't think you need some things going on. You need to go work some shit out to make you think about just having some level of decorum, some level of decency in regards to how you grieve or how you allow people to deal with their shit. All right. There are people who are grieving. You don't need to be doing that. All right. You don't need to be doing that if you have a job. Now, if you run your own shit, you run your own business, and you want to say what the fuck it is you want to say, hey, have at it. But if you actually have a job and you have a responsibility to the organization, you need to take that responsibility seriously. And that's my take on it. So the long take today, because there's a lot I got to, there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of bullshit that is on the internet right now that it genuinely makes me sick. It genuinely disgusts me to actually see people of my skin tone, my ethnicity, acting the way they're acting. It's disgusting to me. So all that being said, main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work, to makeyourmove.com. That's makeyourmove.com. One-stop shop for your teamwork and your self-development needs. Ask one Crookshank, you want it only. Move swiftly, speed. Checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of day you are consuming this evergreen material that we put out here on the Move Swiftly platform, in the Move Swiftly world, every single day, as you just heard. If you are interested, well, first of all, let me reintroduce myself to anybody that is new to this world, new to this channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. You got a little taste of what we're all about here. My name, Aswan Crookshank. I'm your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time, soon to be 6-time published author and educator. What the whole brand is all about, what the whole business is all about, is about taking the innovative teamwork lessons that you learned on the football field, that you just heard, right, and applying them to businesses and or business owners, so they have a staff and or a group of employees that moves as efficiently as a championship high school or youth football team. If you would like more information on that, just simply go to makeyourmove.com. That's makeyourmove.com. Hit the shop now button. You can purchase the books. You can get a free guide. Familiarize yourself with this website. It's not too much information. It gets right to the point. And here's what you get. Turn your business into a championship team. It is common knowledge that the best way to win in business or in life is by avoiding ways to lose. Whether you've just started a new business or you've been in business for quite some time, there is no getting around the need to hire or outsource certain elements of your organization so things can run as efficiently as possible. When you book your meeting with Aswan, he'll diagnose what the issues are with your current system and then strategically create a system in which will lead to a reduced amount of turnover or a clear understanding of the parts of your business that need to be outsourced. So just head over to makeyourmove.com if you're interested in hearing more on that. Now, as far as today, and again, I started off today's show by just giving you my take, because the fallout from Charlie Kirk, if you go back to yesterday's show, or all week, we've actually been talking about this all week. All week's theme has been about the concept and the idea of being talked about and what it entails and what you have to deal with it. If you want to be a person of substance, if you want to maintain a leadership position, if you want to be in a position where you're constantly growing, then being talked about is a prerequisite, it's part of the deal. You have to understand being talked about is actually something that you cannot avoid. So what we're going to be discussing today on Wintrapreneur Wednesday, if you don't know what that word Wintrapreneur means, just be patient with me and I'll explain it to you in a very, very quick format.
as I do is I re-explain it to you every single Wednesday. And by the way, it's the reason that I call myself a 5-time student and a 6-time published author, because book number 6 will be all about entrepreneurship and diving deeper into that concept of being a entrepreneur, right? So as far as what we're going to be talking about today, we're getting back to football, right back to football, all right? And what I do, as you heard, it's a constant connection. It's a constant connection on what you see on the football field, reacting to the football field, how I built what I built, how I created what I created, how I wrote the books I wrote, how I come up with the content, how everything moves in my mind is literally me reacting to what happens on the football field and just making the application, making the connection, making all of these things happen, making all these connections happen because there's a direct correlation. All right, my team. So for those of you who do not know, if you don't follow this, if you haven't followed this channel yet, it's your first time tuning into me, understand that you're going to hear me talk about the Michigan Wolverines football team a lot because I am an absolute psychotic fan of the football program. All right, there's 2 teams that I absolutely am a psychotic fan of. It is the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Redskins. All right, those are my 2 teams and the teams that I cheer for. And when it comes to the recent news in Michigan, again, I love the fact that we beat Central Michigan the way we beat them. That's the way it should happen, which, by the way, you can watch that entire recording, watch the entire game on Film Session Saturday. But what was more so rewarding was there was a coach, an interim coach named Biff Poggi, who's from where I'm from Maryland, right? He's from Maryland. He built up a powerhouse, and we have built up a powerhouse football program in the built up 2 powerhouse programs in Maryland, named Gilman, the Gilman School, and St. Francis Academy. And he's the interim head coach at my Michigan Wolverines. So and I've said it all the time. You know, I've said it in previous shows. I did a whole episode on the understanding that if you want to build a solid football program, you need coaches from the Northeast, a coach from the Northeast. You need athleticism like you're from Florida. You need the Cali swag. You need the Midwestern work ethic, the Ohios and the Michigan. And then you need to eat, sleep, and shit football like you're from Texas. All right. That's the way I broke the whole thing down. I broke the whole thing down in that statement. So when I see coaches from the Northeast and I see guys from Maryland doing their thing, especially at a school like Michigan, I get super pumped. My chest starts poking out a little bit because I was that guy. You know, I'm from the DMV. So to see the Maryland from the DMV, played football in Maryland, and that whole connection, that whole mix. And we always getting this rap like we're just the basketball state. But when you see us doing things in the football world, it always makes me, poke my chest out a little bit. So he's been the interim coach for the next 2 games. It's been him for Central Michigan. There'll be him this week when Michigan plays Nebraska. Now, again, I love the fact that we beat Central Michigan, but at the same time, I'm not excited until we go into Lincoln, Nebraska, and tap some ass. We have some making up to do after that ass kicking we took in Norman, Oklahoma. So I'll be looking forward to watching that one this week. But once we get this win this week against Nebraska and Lincoln, then it's like, okay, we're back on track. We're back getting to where we got to get to. We got the young cat and Bryce Underwood starting to really get his feel right, get his situation right. Once we beat like a worthy opponent, I don't get excited with wins against Central Michigan. I really don't. I really don't. But at the same time, we did beat them the way that we needed to beat them. We did prove that, hey, we're still where we need. We still are a worthy opponent, all right? We still are something to be reckoned with when it comes to the Big Ten. You can't just write us off because we've got an incoming freshman quarterback. The guy's going to develop. The defense, for the most part, the defense didn't look too bad against Oklahoma as it is, but the defense does fly around and make plays offensively. What we saw in Central Michigan was the offense open up the playbook a little more, throw deep again. You guys go watch the full game, and I talk about a diagram. And in fact, I have my YouTube guy, my thumbnail guy, editing out the video, so they're going to be coming out in short snippets as we go along throughout the season. And all of that is because the plan is for me to become a play-by-play announcer for college football games. Whenever the contract I get off of the contract and it has the numbers that I'm happy with, then you'll see me there, button it up, dressed up, cleaned up, nice, talking ball. I can't wait. So that is something that I do plan on doing, which is one of the reasons, again, you see me constantly on the internet, not because there's a ton of followers, a ton of likes, a ton of people. Don't get me wrong. Again, that stuff's important, and I do, value that stuff, and I do value it, and I do spend some time thinking about how to improve that. But it's also because the quality of the content and what you're learning and the way I'm developing, the way things are connecting for me in all different phases of life. And when you see a Coach Biff Poggi, who I knew about because I grew up in Maryland, but it was from a distance. I can tell you right now, I did not know who he was until I saw his son play. Because most of the time, listen, during the time Gilman was really big, I was playing, right? I was playing. And, normally when it's a player, you usually have your own game to think about. You usually have your own things to think about where you don't really get an opportunity to see too much about what's going on with programs that are not actually on your schedule. So all that being said, let's get into the article there where we'll learn what a wintrapreneur is and why Biff Poggi is the perfect person to talk about when it comes to being a wintrapreneur. All right, so Wintrapreneur Wednesday, why Coach Biff Poggi's leadership still echoes in my career. Very true. All right, so that was him this past weekend with when they played Central Michigan. Again, I watched the game in its entirety, and it is documented. It is a video that's public that you guys can go watch right now. Just head over to Film Session Saturday on YouTube. Film Session Saturday on YouTube. All right, so all that being said, I say it as often as I need to. The best coaches come from the Northeast. Born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland, my chest pokes out with pride every time I make that statement. And today, as part of our Wintrapreneur Wednesday Spotlight, I'm giving that title to a man whose presence has influenced my journey long before I ever knew his name. Coach Biff Poggi. All right. What's a wintrapreneur? All right. So here we go. Newcomers, new time, new people. Pay attention now. What's a wintrapreneur? Wintrapreneur is someone who has a strong entrepreneurial vision for their life, but who's also found a job that pays them consistently and aligns with that vision. It's about knowing your long game while excelling in the short term game too. Biff Poggi embodies that balance. Coach Poggi embodies that balance. Before he ever stepped onto a high school sideline, Biff Poggi was already a millionaire. All right, he could have stayed in the financial world, but instead he chose to pour into the next generation, leaving Wall Street to coach football at the Gilman School in Baltimore. So that's the first thing. That was the big thing. All right, so Coach Poggi had, and I wasn't sure if it was Wall Street. You got to just simply look it up, but it was something big in the financial world. I think it was wealth management or something like that he was doing. Long story short is he was caking. He was caking after college. He had all the money that you could need. Like, he had all the money that one would need. He didn't need any extra money, but he dropped all that. He dropped a financially lucrative career because he wanted to get into coaching and give back to his community. That right there is wintrapreneurship at its core. There's a philanthropic viewpoint that every wintrapreneur has to have, to the point where you would know if you had it, if it was in the bank account, then you would be trying to figure out, how do we give it? How do we reinvest it to create win-wins? How do we open more doors and create more opportunities for the younger generation to learn what you've learned, to be given what you've been given? Again, like Biff Poggi, I have a father who taught me a lot in terms of how to manage your money, in terms of just how to make sure you're staying on top of things and make sure you're constantly working and staying on, I don't want to say staying on top of bills per se, but making sure you are actually developing a level of work ethic to where if you don't have it in the bank account, whenever you meet the right people, you make the right connection, you have the work ethic to go get it. All right, that's the power and the presence of having the right father, having a father in your life, is that as men, we're going to make mistakes financially. We're going to make mistakes in everything. We're men. We're going to make mistakes. That's what we do. We do dumb. It's like Kevin Hart said, we do dumb shit. That's what men do. All right. But at the same time, there's a level of work ethic that you need to see in every man that you meet, that if you don't see this work ethic, if the work ethic isn't there, there's absolutely no future with the individual. And what my father instilled in me, what his father instilled in him, is that when you develop a work ethic, then things start to manage. You're able to maneuver and put things in place for your tomorrows, to make your tomorrows better than your yesterdays. But without the work ethic piece, you just won't go anywhere, period, point blank. You're just going to, wherever the fuck you are right now is exactly where you're going to be 10, 15 years down the line. If you don't have the work ethic to sacrifice some things, hey, put some shit to the side, hey, maybe clubbing, maybe new shoes every week, maybe, buying new clothes and all this other stuff that people spend money on, maybe figuring out how we can take some money, put it to the side, put it in some investments, put it in some bonds, put it in some stocks, making a reinvestment in your community. Maybe that makes more sense, so you can constantly see win-wins. There's a difference, all right? And forgive me because I'm kind of on edge, or I'm moved because I just this past Saturday I went to this trading class, and I learned this whole concept of trading, and they're talking about income versus wealth, and just the sitting in on that training is like got me thinking, okay, I like that. I like the concept of going income, and it was actually my girl who recommended that I go, but she was the one initially interested in trading. And then as she brought it to me, I started getting more interested in myself. And then just sitting in on the meeting, it's like, look, man, put your money in some investments, wealth, take the income that you have now and flip it into wealth just based on how you're living, based on being fiscally responsible, based on all of that stuff. So yeah, that's the world he was in. He was in the world of financial investments and was living a very lucrative life, right? So when it came, so again, this wasn't a career, it was just calling. So how I first felt. So again, all of this was happening while I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was. I was, again, just a kid from Maryland playing football at Good Counsel, which is one of the more premier programs in the school. So I didn't know who he was. If you're talking about football in Maryland, in my mind, like a lot of the people, my teammates, it's only the WCAC. It's only us as Good Counselors, the Math, it's Gonzaga, St. John's. That's it. And there's nobody else that knows how to play football. if you're a player there, at least at the time that I played, because everything wasn't so public. There wasn't ESPN and all that kind of stuff. So we thought that we were just hot shit as Good Counsel football players, right? So here we go. How I first felt Coach Poggi's presence. All right. How I first felt Coach Poggi's presence. I was a junior at Our Lady of Good Counsel High School, one of the top programs in the DMV. Back then, we believed, like I just said, there were only two teams that mattered, us and DeMatha. But one weekend, both of us got humbled. So one weekend during my junior year, we lost to Robinson High School in Northern Virginia, and DeMatha lost to a team that we'd never taken seriously, the Gilman School. The coach of the Gilman School, this was Biff Poggi, all right? That was my introduction. But as I entered, so that was my introduction to him, right? That was my introduction to who he was. And at that point, I didn't know his name. I didn't know who the head coach was because I was so locked in his playing. And we just lost to a team in Northern Virginia. The only thing we knew about him, period, was the fact that he had a Gilman team that just beat our rivals in DeMatha. So we're like, okay, who the fuck is Gilman? Thank you for beating DeMatha, number one. But it's like, who is Gilman? I don't know what that program is or what it's about. At least speaking on my behalf, I didn't know who he was, right? So that was the first introduction. But then life happens. As I entered the business myself, as I entered the scouting world myself, years later, after I graduated college, a couple years later, his name kept showing up. I was the only. So what happened was I took a job after college as an independent college scout for a company named NSR, right? That stands for National Scouting Report, right? So I was the only NSR scout in Maryland and focused on helping football players, even though the organization was not even, it really wasn't about football. It was about other sports. It was about girls sports. However, in the time I worked there, worked to the NSR company. I was only able to manage to sign up 3 people, and all 3 of them were football players. It's because when you go on these home visits and you talk to parents about the college recruiting process, you have to be coming from your own experience. And, that's just the reality of commission work. Entrepreneurial work is actually going and working on commission. That's what you have to do. So I ended up only signing football players because my alma mater, Good Counsel, was becoming such a big deal, and there was everybody in the area trying to figure out what are they doing that's making them such a major deal. So I'll never forget. I was the only NSR scout and focused on helping football players. So I'll never forget watching a championship game at Towson University when a name caught my ear. Henry Poggi, Coach Poggi's son. He would later go on to play at Michigan, and his dad took a coaching position there. So just just for some context here, I had recruited one player. I'd signed up one player. His name was Malik Dorsey. I signed up one player to the program, and he had his championship game. He went to, at the time, he went to Annapolis Area Christian, which is another like private school in the Maryland area that had some decent guys. But his team made it all the way to the championship that year, right? And then after that championship game, I remember it was a cold night in Baltimore at Towson University. It's older than the mother. But after his game, I stayed to watch some of the other games, and that's when I first actually saw Gilman play for the first time ever. And I'm trained to see who sticks out. I'm trained to see what players. I'm trained to go to a football game, watch it, and see who's actually the one that's playing and is sticking out and making plays and all that kind of stuff. That's the way I'm trained to go about it. And then I saw this kid. His name is number seven. I'll never forget it. Number 7 kept. Yep, there it is, Henry. If you see it, Henry Poggi in high school. I'm looking it up so you guys can see it. Yep, number 7. See, I never forget these things. This is what I do, folks. He was number 7 again. I was like, who is this number 7 guy playing his ass off? He was playing. He was a good player. And when so what happened was I went to Malik, and I saw Malik hanging out after the game, and I was like, yo, you ever seen Gilman play? And then when he told me, he goes, yeah, you got to look out for this cat named Poggi, Henry Poggi, number 7. And I had already, because I didn't know his name, but as I saw him on the field, I was like, okay, he's sticking out to me. And then all of it started happening. So as his dad took the position there, now it's like, okay, that name is really starting to draw attention, because as my career was developing, obviously I'm developing an eye for talent. Obviously, I'm now getting better at the thing that I'm trying to do. I'm seeing the people that the college coaches are obviously enamored with and stuff like that. So it started to give me some clarity in terms of how I can take this business and where I need to be going towards this business, right? So everything continued. So the cost of winning renewed appreciation. So before you read again, I'm going to close you guys out. Where are we at the time? We'll close you guys out in a couple minutes here. I encourage everyone reading this to go watch the HB docuseries titled The Cost of Winning. It chronicles Coach Poggi's turned St. Francis. It chronicles how Coach Poggi turned St. Francis Academy, Baltimore, into a national powerhouse. All right, so I encourage everyone, go watch this. Go watch this for yourself. All right, it's 4-part. It's only 4 episodes, but they're incredibly impactful, and it will absolutely do it justice in terms of the type of guy, the type of coach he really is. This right here is absolute. It was an absolute pleasure to watch. I couldn't stop, and as soon as I turned it on, I'm watching it straight through. I couldn't stop. Right? So it was one of the most honest portrayals of leadership, giving, and building from the ground up I've ever seen. What stood out the most was Coach Poggi was philanthropy in motion. He didn't just want to win football games. He wants it to transform lives. So I can recall one scene where St. Francis is playing Miami Central at Florida. After the game, Coach Poggi tells the Miami Central coach, I'll give you $20,000 to come play us in Baltimore next year. No red tape, no bragging, just making sure the opportunities stay alive. So let me just tell you real quick again, and this is why the name is constantly kind of moving as I'm moving, because what happened was I remember being at that game live. I remember going, because it was around the time that I had just moved from Maryland to Florida, and I was anxious. I was anxious to go see South Florida high school football in motion. Like, that was why I moved out here. I tell people all the time, it was the football, and it was the Hispanic women, and it was the football and the Hispanic women. Oh no, I'm playing. It was the fitness as well. But more important, football and Hispanic women. But the fitness community as well, that I work out every morning, I run every morning, so I love the fitness community. That's why Florida was the move. But anyway, I drove out there. I remember driving out to Miami Central to watch St. Francis Academy play them, And St. Francis was, just blew them out. They were overmatched. Again, you could see that St. Francis was just top down, just a better team. But what I didn't see was actually what the cameras caught on that docuseries where Coach Poggi was like, hey, man, why don't we do this next year? You guys come down to Baltimore. And then the Miami Central coach, hey, man, we poor, man. We don't got money like that. And he goes, don't worry about it. I'll pay you $20K. I'll pay you $20K to come down. I'll pay you $20K to come down. Just figure it out. And they say, all right, we'll talk. We'll figure it out, right? That's philanthropy in motion. That's what I mean when I say philanthropy in motion, because what happened was St. Francis is so good. Like, they were actually like just powerhouse team that teams in Baltimore in a conference, they didn't want to play them. They had to go on the road and play a national schedule every single game. Imagine that you had high school kids every single weekend having to travel to different states, all Cali, Florida, Pennsylvania, to all sorts of places that they had to go to play their games because nobody in their county wanted to play them. They were too good. They're too good. And they would have absolutely destroyed some teams if they played them. So as I close you out, Biff Poggi today, still building with us. So today, Coach Poggi is the acting head coach at Michigan, filling in during Sherrone Moore's 2-game suspension in 2025. His team won his opener. His methods still win. All right. And more than anything, his name still carries that same weight it did when I was at high school. And when I was a high school athlete just trying to make a name, Coach Poggi's journey teaches us what it means to live with purpose, to give boldly, and to leave the game better than you found it. So final word, coaching with a bigger why. In a world where many coach for accolades, Coach Biff Poggi coaches for legacy. He's proof that you don't have to pick between wealth and impact, business and belief, structure and heart. You can build an empire by building others. One kid, one rep, one opportunity at a time. He's more than just a coach. He's an entrepreneur. If you want to do a deeper dive in his story, just look up his name, the cost of winning, all that stuff is available. Just a simple Google search for that. All right. So all that being said, again, if you want to dive deeper into my work and you want this organization, you want your business moving like that championship team, like the championship team I discussed, it is makeyourmove.com. What we do is we really break it down and we really do a deep dive in terms of what your systems are towards hiring people and what are your systems towards developing people, and how do we make sure we're implementing these things day in and day out. It's a very simple formula that we have around here. It's establishing measurables plus a professional distance and getting a solid mix of those two and allowing that to create a productive environment. There's a lot of you organizations that do not have that. Main website to check out for all of the information and have me come in and speak to your staff. It's makeyourmove.com, like you see right there on the screen. It's makeyourmove.com. One-stop shop for your teamwork and your self-development needs. As one, Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker. Check it out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.